I think 7-minute time limits plus jet lag is a devastating combination. It's just because we all just speak incredibly fast. People are basically asleep, which is kind of interesting sort of piece of theatre. Okay, so I'm going to speak incredibly fast on two things. One, I'm going to just briefly introduce a book, and it will be brief. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Oxfam. So the book's just come out. It's called How Change Happens, and I was trying to work out how it fits with DDD. And I think it's basically going back from DDD rather than forwards and saying, what is the actual intellectual justification for this movement, which is out there? It's aiming at a broader audience. There are some on sale, but I have to tell you, in the interest of honesty, it's free to download. It's getting it's 3,500 downloads in the first 2 weeks. There's a lot of interest in this topic out there. And it's actually looking at the theory of change rather than the theory of action, or as well as theory of action. So it's actually looking at how change happens without aid and without donors, which amazingly is incredibly absent from a lot of donor literature. So looking at how systems evolve, states, international system, and so on. And then it goes on to the theory of action and the kinds of people we need to be, picking up on what Taylor was talking about, to work in these in more systems ways. The main differences with the DDD, I think, is that focus on endogenous change, theory of change rather than theory of action, but also power. I still think that the DDD movement is on one side of the Rao-Kelleher power framework in the formal power bit and doesn't do nearly enough on the informal power bit. So Oxfam, because of its work on gender issues, has always been very strong on the informal side, and it's trying to get people into a more, I think, comprehensive, holistic view of how power shifts within communities and within countries. Initial impressions from 30 book launches so far, 2 more this afternoon, so I won't be here, I'm afraid. People feel that this is kind of justifying what they thought anyway, which actually is great. So it's actually giving people confidence that their anxieties about the way aid is happening and the way development is being portrayed actually are warranted. And so I think it's kind of a confidence booster more than a revelatory experience for people so far. Right, that's enough about the book. On Oxfam. I know, as speaking for Oxfam, I should just say Oxfam's great. We're totally across this, and just hustle and pitch and impress, and that's probably what I should be doing to earn my wages. I don't think I can do that. Actually, I think listening to some of these presentations, I don't think we're there. I hope they're there. I wonder whether Oxfam is both too big and too small. So I think, on one sense, we're too big. I wrote a paper about the future of INGOs saying, how do you take a supertanker whitewater rafting? With great difficulty, is the answer. But we're too small because we're dealing with the sticky middle in the donors. We're dealing with what I call the dandruff people, the people who just want to get home at 5 o'clock, go to the pub, don't want to deal with all this interesting, new, novel sort of stuff. If you're big and you're dealing with the senior people, then they will get doing development differently. I think this is a bit of a bubble. And we really need to stand back and say, how far has this actually percolated into aid practice? Because I suspect it's not nearly as much as we would like to think. So when I talk to academics or our staff, I hear Project Titus, log frame, linearity all the time. And we're taking a few nice examples and saying this is where it's all going. I'd need to be convinced about that, to be honest. What's going on in Oxfam? There is some stuff. We're not at a tipping point, but there's a lot of innovation bubbling up. A lot of it in new, how do you get past the parent-child dynamic, as a colleague called it, in aid? How do you get past that, I've got the money, I'm giving you the money, let's call ourselves partners thing. And I think it's about multi-stakeholder initiatives. It's how do you politically sterilize the power imbalance through convening bigger groups, program implementation units where everybody sits around the table. Finding ways to sterilize the power imbalance is quite important. Redefining success, so actually using MEL to monitoring and evaluation to measure women's empowerment, to measure the stuff that counts, and getting good at it and cheap at it is really going to be absolutely essential if we're going to sell this within and to donors. And real-time evaluation, that's coming in. Iteration is becoming part of the general deal. What is failing? Competitive funding bids. If you do this and you're up against somebody else and they're not doing it, you're more expensive and you're more vague. And that's really hard because the pressures are all on you to have unwarranted, unjustified certainty in what you're saying you're going to do. So I think we're still up against a huge set of negative incentives on this. it needs advanced project management skills, and sometimes we're struggling to even find the project management skills. So yeah, you're asking people to be really brilliant at this kind of stuff and embedded and systemy when they just can't even, they're struggling to just manage a budget properly. So I think, where are we going to find the people for this? I absolutely agree that HR is at the heart of a lot of this. One of the frustrating things, good ideas don't spread. I found loads of examples of this, one-offs bubbling up in Oxfam, sometimes spontaneously, usually by accident, someone's just had a good idea, and I make a big noise about them and it doesn't spread. And I want to know why. I haven't yet nailed down what is the thing that's stopping good ideas spreading. Lessons, this is all about mindsets, it's about permission, both from the money people and internal leadership agree with that, and risk doesn't go away. So we can't just sort of deny risk and say, oh, let's get more risky, because then we won't get funded. So I think a bit of a reality check, I think, on this one.